Hello, everybody. It is 9:30 Eastern Standard Time here in East Tennessee. It is Friday, February 14th. Happy St. Valentine's Day to all, and I hope everybody has a good weekend. But I thought I'd do a quick wrap-up video at the end of the week here. The Munich Security Conference going on, a conference that has made historical significance of years, 2008, 2021, where a lot of things that were said that helped lead to certain foreign debacles going forward. But it is a time traditionally where people, the Europeans, NATO members, sometimes, allies that are not in NATO, like Australia, Japan, come in, and then they discuss mostly national security things. Now, what I think is very important here is J.D. Vance's speech, because he recognizes that security is not just about military and foreign policy. Well, today's NATO and Western global elites who run things for now, and that grip on power is starting to slip a little bit, it means just really the military power, particularly American military power, okay? A little less on the diplomacy, okay? But it also, what J.D. Vance does is he makes them realize, or at least attempts to, explain that the national security of these individual nations at the conference, so NATO, the United States, it's more than just that. It's about our immigration, okay, our Western values, our freedom of speech, right? All these globalists and progressive and liberal neoliberals and neocons always like to talk about our democracy, okay? And they think, just like here, the Democrats and the neocons and the neolibs and the progressives think that these institutions just operate outside of the will of the people. And regardless of who's in office, who's not in office, that they just keep moving the machine and do whatever the hell they freaking want. Okay, just like the European Union and van der Leyen. She's not even elected. The European Commission's not even elected. Okay, so he goes in there and hits on a bunch of topics that hammer, particularly the United Kingdom and Germany and countries that have these huge free speech laws. We know what's going on in the United Kingdom, how they arrested people against just praying silently outside of an abortion clinic, basically thought crimes and things to that nature, because the established elites don't like that language and it goes against their narrative and their grip on power. So he goes in there and he says, hey, our security, and he even says it, the danger is within. And he's right. He nails it, okay? And that is awesome, okay? So when you think about it, he hits on immigration. He hits on free speech. He hits on a whole bunch of things, hitting them that you can't talk about Western values and talk about a big military to defend those Western values when you are throwing those Western values right out the window here at home, okay? So there are two clips I'm going to show you that I think were really good from J.D. Vance. So let's shoot over to the first one.
Delighted that the Romanian government had just annulled an entire election. He warned that if things don't go to plan, the very same thing could happen in Germany too. Now, these cavalier statements are shocking to American ears. For years, we've been told that everything we fund and support is in the name of our shared democratic values. Everything from our Ukraine policy to digital censorship is billed as a defense of democracy. But when we see European courts canceling elections and senior officials threatening to cancel others, we ought to ask whether we're holding ourselves to an appropriately high standard. Recently, and sounded delighted.
Nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone, and of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know this situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade. We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community. How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants.
So there you have it. Okay? There you have it. So let's go to the first clip. Okay? The first clip where he's referring to, shared values and speech issues. Okay? What he's referring to that sticks out, and if you've watched my videos, I've covered this, is the election in Romania where Georgescu, who was in the same playbook, Russia, pro-Russia, okay, he's pro-Romanian, okay, but remember, NATO, particularly the United States, has missiles in Romania. But anyway, he won the first round, and without evidence, and still none presented, okay, the court threw out the election. And that's just absurd. All in the name of democracy. That's how sick and twisted these freaking people are. What they will do for the grips on power and control is astonishing. Okay, so he mentioned that. Okay, he also mentioned about banning another political party. That is the AFD, and we will get to that shortly because it's linked into my commentary on the second clip. Okay, they are trying to ban the Alternative for Deutschland party, which has been there for years. Okay, currently I think has 77 seats in the Bundestag, and the election's coming up on February 23rd. Excuse me. So you have to see, so here in this clip, he's talking about free speech. He's also attacking the progressive neoliberal establishment that runs the European Union and NATO. Okay, because in Europe, the NATO and European Union really kind of overlap in reality. Okay, and then he's talking about, the involvement of us in these elections, of these liberal elites elections, because they don't like it. And it mirrors the other clips that he said that I'd mentioned prior about how they're shutting down free speech. They're using these internet laws and safe space internet laws and bullshit to freaking control the narrative. Okay? And we know, the Christmas attack, in the Christmas market in Germany. They had the attack in Munich, which is what he's referring to. Okay, that happened just, I think, yesterday or the day before. Okay, where a guy went right into the crowd. Okay, shocker, right? Just like in New Orleans here. It happens all the time. Sometimes it's a few people, and a lot of times it doesn't even hit the news in the United States. But when you add it cumulative, it's insane. But it's not just about the violence that you import. It's that the people are so disassociated from your history, your values, your culture, and your language, they can't assimilate. And such mass numbers, they don't assimilate. They become subpar. And these liberal governments are so more interested in protecting their cheap labor and their globalist world order, okay, that they want to, because they want to dilute the national identity. You dilute the national identity, you impose a corporatist, top-down government. You can control things just the way they do in China, using corporations, centralized government and planning, and you can control the culture. Okay? As Andrew Breitbart said, you control the culture, all politics streams down from culture. So basically, if you control the culture, you control that. So if you get rid of your nationalist culture and impose this hodgepodgey whatever, but the problem is you then end up getting jihadis, people who are appalled by certain aspects of Western culture because they're so liberal in terms of anything goes now with transgenderism, whatever, okay? And they really don't want to assimilate in any way, shape, or form. So like I said earlier, they become these little pockets. It is not beneficial. Then you hold down wages, you have high crime. It doesn't benefit anybody but the elites who benefit from the cheap labor and their ideological long-term goals of globalism. Okay? So the second clip really, again, I already guess I really covered it with the migration and the attack. So let's move on to my first little picture here. All right, there you go. This is just a picture, the aftermath of the attack in Munich. All right. So this is a key issue. And this is an issue that I talk about the uniting and the similarities of the MAGA movement in the United States and these populist, center-right populist parties. Now, they call them far-right. They're not. In many cases, domestically, they are center, or some even have, especially when it comes to domestic economics, kind of a left-leaning tilt to them, like even the National Rally a little bit in France. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have the, actually I'm going to do this slide first. We have the German election on February 23rd. So this is the polling average, okay, as of now. So 10 days out, CDU, CSU. That's CDU is the Christian Democratic Union / Christian Socialist Union. It's the same party, but basically in the province or state of Bavaria, they call themselves the CSU. They're kind of separate, okay? But just the way the Minnesota Democratic Party is called the DFL. Same thing there, okay? They are center-right domestically. They tend to be more globalists. They're big on the pro-Ukraine war, and they sit with the EPP in the European Parliament. Okay, they're like your Macron party or your establishment, traditional establishment Republican Party over the last 15, 20 years. Okay, then you have AFD, that's your MAGA movement. That's your National Rally, your Vox, etc. They're at 21%, okay, average polling. Now, the ruling coalition right now on this, what we call Sergeant Schultz, is 16%, with the coalition, the Greens, at 13%. That's not good for the left. So, and then below that, there are some others, another right-wing party, and then there's like a couple of other left-wing fringe parties. But, yeah, if you add up the SPD, which is the Traditional Socialist Party, and the Greens, they equal the CDU. So what's going to be interesting going forward, how many seats each get to get a majority in a coalition government. CDU has said they won't work with AFD, even though they're adopting some of their policies. So we'll see what happens. That's what they said in Austria. And now the AfD equivalent, the FPO in Austria, is now in a coalition government. And some good policies are being passed there. Immigration-wise, even basic budgetary issues. So now we mentioned that attack. So this is a poll that was done by the Democracy Institute, which I believe is Basham's group. Don't quote me on that. But from the Express newspaper, which is a very large newspaper in the United Kingdom. They found out since the attack that 11% of voters who weren't planning on voting for AfD are now considering it. They've had enough. Okay. So, and their recent poll that came out just last night shows CDU now at 30, but AFD at 27. So either undecideds went to AFD, etc. That's a possibility. Then, so that's really good. So this is what's going on. Now, I just wanted to show you this map as we see, at least in the central part of Europe here. Okay, the national leaders that are right have taken over so far. Bulgaria, Hungary, this is Slovakia, Croatia, and that's the same is about to happen in Romania with Georgescu. Austria, technically they are in power right now, and the Czech Republic. Okay, and who knows, how the National Rally is growing. They're third in France, even though they have the most single votes. And then Germany, where we're going to see how the AFD does. So I think that's going pretty good. So I just wanted to give you a background there. Now, shoot back home, domestic front. As I've always said, is that because of these interest rates, because of inflation and everything, people are just putting stuff on credit card and debt with the rising interest rates for housing. So look at this. Housing debt has increased, okay, from 8 trillion to 12 trillion, okay, basically in 15 years, okay. And it hasn't really spiked that much because I think a lot of people are now priced out of it. But non-housing debt has gone up dramatically. In the last 4 years, it's gone from, let's see, a slice of it, looks like 3.5 trillion to 5 trillion. That's your credit cards, your auto loans, because of the higher interest rates, and people living paycheck to paycheck. So they're just throwing stuff and gapping it with a credit card. The next item is this. Now, I've made a comment that the stock market has done well, mostly because of the decreasing purchasing power of the dollar, basically inflation. Okay, and that we're not selling more units, and companies aren't selling more units, and they're not increasing profits dramatically. But what is actually going on is it is the cost. So this is retail sales. So when you adjust retail sales, okay, for inflation, here's the number. Look at that. It is flat. Actually, it's even below than it was pre-pandemic numbers, because this is 2020 right here. All right, you have the down from the pandemic hit, and then boom. So it's actually going below where the pre-pandemic levels are right now, actual retail sales. So the increase in the stock market is more due to the decrease of the purchasing power of the dollar. So basically, while middle-class people are struggling and gapping it with a credit card, these people's assets are inflating. So we're getting a huge shift of assets and value from the lower middle, and even upper middle classes to some extent, to the real top 1% and above. Okay, that is not capitalism. That is not economic nationalism. The elites on Wall Street, the hedge funders, and their influence in government policies over the last 30 years, and particularly since the financial crisis, have set up a system and a globalist system to benefit themselves. And they use their additional funds to keep control and power and to buy politicians, whether through PACs, dark money, or international institutions. And that's what our parties and the MAGA movement is trying to bring. And that's what our libertarian friends don't get. We want to bring back true entrepreneurial economic nationalism and economic markets, economic liberty. So that's my little commentary on that. So I thought I'd give a little Ukraine war update. Now, this is a map of an area that I've been showing for a while because of this big pocket right here. That's Ukraine trying to hold on. Now, this is a village, Dechnoye, that just fell in the last 24 hours to the Russians. This was a little wider. So they're just closing this pocket. Now, this is the Pokrovsk Highway that goes all the way towards Pokrovsk. As I've said earlier, it's just a major supply hub. They're going to reach that. Now, to the west of Pokrovsk, they're pushing northwest around Pokrovsk, and they're setting up a cauldron as they approach the oblast to the northwest of Donetsk called the Dnipropetrovsk. All right. So clearly, Russia is continuing to steamroll a little bit in that area. So there was also another article that I thought was made. Sudan apparently is allowing Russia to establish a base or two there because, and also Syria looks like, at least for now, and I mentioned this in other videos, is going to have them do a couple, keep their naval bases on the Mediterranean. So right now, to get into Africa with that Russia, where they have influence, particularly in the Sahel area, they're relying kind of on Libya a little bit as a temporary gap, but this looks like a permanent thing for Russia in Sudan. And Sudan's kind of a mess, but that'll be a way for them to get in there on top of their at least being able to be in Syria for a little bit. So I just wanted to give you an update what was going on in the Syria situation, how it affects Russia. So, with the peace talks going on that are starting, we'll see how that goes and so forth. We know Pete Hegseth, he gave a speech, talking about the importance of the alliance. And then I just gave you J.D. Vance's speech at the Munich conference, how it wraps into this whole center-right, populist, economic, nationalist movement that MAGA and these European parties are a part of. And he took apart these global elites. Remember, it is after this conference that Russia invaded Georgia, okay? In 2008. It was after this conference that they went into Ukraine because of what these arrogant elitists do by ignoring the will of, or at least the concerns of Russia. So, and at the same time attacking them for their hypocritical positions on free speech, going after people in speech they don't like, and saying they're all doing it for democracy. They're not. They're a bunch of globalist, elitist, self-serving, soulless scumbags. And J.D. Vance called them out. And I think that's awesome. So I just wanted to do a quick wrap up. I love the speech so much. I wanted to share it with you and just give you an update in Germany and how it looks like AFD should get a surge in these last 10 days going to election, because I would really love an upset, or at least such a strong second finish that the CDU has no choice but to go into a coalition government with them. So I'll be following that, the polling data, since that terrorist attack, as more comes out. Maybe I'll post it to my X or Getter. I'll keep an eye out on the Ukraine, see if any more villages fall, so forth. Kursk, Russia's still pushing from the northwest in the remaining 40%, 35% of the territory of Kursk that Ukraine originally took. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. Oh yeah, we all know RFK got through. That's awesome. And Kash Patel also passed the committee vote, so we'll get the full vote soon. So we'll be keeping an eye out on all those things. The EOs keep on coming. That's awesome. And even if he doesn't have the authority, it's great. Court case bogged down, make the Democrats' heads keep spinning. I love it. So anything on these topics comes out between now and next week, I'll try to post it on my X and Getter. And if you like this video, please follow, like, and share. Really appreciate it. And also, you can follow me on X, at Patriot Planner 1 and at Patriot Planner on my Getter. All right. Have a great weekend. I hope everybody had a wonderful Valentine's Day. I'll see you guys soon.